Daniel, you're always following these horrible people in our government and elsewhere that are working for the destruction of freedom in the United States. So Rashida Tlaib, a very interesting individual, she has a favorite BDS group. And this BDS group recently mourned an ISIS terrorist. And this group is a group that Rashida Tlaib likes. So a lot of ISIS supporters are in America. Tell us about what Rashida Tlaib is up to recently in this context.
So, people are not paying so much attention to Islamic terrorism because if it's not in the headlines, and obviously there are serious economic issues that are foremost in people's minds, but Islamic terrorists are always coming up with new tricks, and there's been a wave of Islamic terrorist attacks in Israel. The unusual thing about this wave has been some of the tactics and also the associations. ISIS has not had much of a presence in Israel before this, but a number of these attacks and a number of these terrorists have been linked to ISIS. And this was the case that we're discussing now, was the case of one of the terrorists who were actually killed in a confrontation with Israeli soldiers. And one of those terrorists was buried in an ISIS flag. So the media decided to basically cover it up. They would describe the ISIS flag as bearing the seal of Muhammad, which is, true. But of course, the ISIS flag bears the seal of Muhammad. So describing him as being buried in a flag carrying the seal of Muhammad, well, that is the ISIS flag. And in the case the media didn't want to discuss it, but the various Islamic terrorist groups on the ground expressed support for the terrorists. They called them martyrs. That includes the PLO, and includes Hamas, which effectively means that this is a case where the terrorist groups that we give political support to, that we give financial support to, like the PLO, are also tied up with ISIS. Various anti-Israel so-called nonprofits, activist groups also engaged. They tweeted, they sent out statements of support. They mourned these terrorists. And, of course, this is what they always do. It's always, the terrorist who's shot while stabbing 3 Israelis. It's always Israelis shoot Palestinian man. Of course, it's unprovoked. And of course, he's the victim, even if he's got a knife in his hand and there's blood on the knife. But in this case, there's particularly something damning, because when you have a terrorist who's actually being buried in an ISIS flag, that indicates, first of all, not only was this particular terrorist aligned with ISIS, but there's an entire family, within the Arab sector. It's not just families, it's really these large extended families. It's these tribal groups, really. And you've got maybe a few of these that are really massive. They're composed of large numbers of people. So it means that this kind of thing, if it happened, when it happens, when there's a terrorist being buried in an ISIS flag, it's not just one guy, it's not just 10 guys, it's not just 100 guys. We're probably talking about thousands. We're talking about a widespread reservoir of support. And obviously, Rashida Tlaib has very much been an extension of the so-called Palestinian movement within Congress. Being able to elect her, being able to get her into Congress was a huge victory for them. She pushes their various agendas, the Nakba claim, the claim that Israel is illegitimate, does not deserve to exist. And it is very revealing to see just the pipeline of extremism. So when you see that there is a direct connection between the anti-Israel movement in America, between the Islamic terrorists in Israel, and between ISIS. Because ISIS for a while was this kind of no-go zone. It was this movement we dare not support. We can sort of get around to discussing a deal with Hamas. There was a big push for that around the Obama era. There were elements of the Muslim Brotherhood we could completely align with. Al-Qaeda was controversial. They couldn't quite rationalize Al-Qaeda. But then ISIS was just seemed to be so overtly barbaric, even though all the Islamic terrorists would basically believe the same things. They do the same things. But ISIS was very much upfront about it. They did not mince words. They would actually show you people being beheaded. They would show you people being burned alive in cages. They would openly take 12-year-old girls as sex slaves and rape them while describing this as a prayer of devotion to Allah. So they were open about this, which is why they became persona non grata, and none of these people could openly defend ISIS. And now, this is the reality. Once you accept any Islamic terrorist group, you accept all of them.